welcome to this episode of the Water Ski Podcast. This episode is my own personal tribute to one of the coaches that I've had growing up, and his name is José Castelli. I was growing up in Brescia with members of our ski club that were from Lake Iseo. This is a natural lake in Italy that had a ski school headed by José Castelli. And these ski schools had been open since the 70s. And all I'd heard were literally legends of this coach that was a little rough. He would leave people in the middle of the lake. Now, mind you, in the middle of a natural lake with navigation. But he was famous, nevertheless, to have brought up a lot of talent. This is the man that my dad was doing rescue boat in the late 80s, early 90s, asked by his boss at his job to do this favor for this water ski tournament. And through a tournament that José organized, my dad was exposed for this random situation to water skiing, and then he fell in love with the sport, and that's what brought me into the sport. And also my dad learned how to drop a ski and ski on one ski with José. And my dad has his own experiences with him. And mind you, these experiences were of like a rough man that knew a lot, but was hard to stand. So I had this image of this guy. And then in the mid-2000s, I was about 16, and my relationship with my coach was going through a rough period. It was going at a period where, I was 16, I started to run, 11 or 38 off. So I was proficient skier, and because of that, I started to have my own ideas about how my skiing needed to be, how it needed to look like, things that I wanted to do. And me and my coach were just not speaking the same language, to the point that I was really considering, taking a step back from the sport or considering other options. And then I live on Lake Iseo. Like I grew up on this lake. I've always seen the course on the opposite side of the lake where I grew up, but I never skied with the man. And so I said, okay. I called him up, got the number from one of our club members, and said, "Hey, José, my dad is out for work, and I don't really want to take the train to go to Brescia. I would love to come and ski with you for a week." And it was very graceful. And I showed up, and where his dock was in front of a supermarket. So my mom said, "Yeah, I'll drop you off. You can go ski with him, and I'll go to the supermarket, and I'll pick you up when you're done." And I remember showing up. It was sunset over the lake, beautiful orange lake. And José was on a camping chair looking to really his lake. And very almost like martial art scenario. And so I introduced myself, and I knew he knew of my dad and met him ages before. And I said, "Well, I would love to ski." So he warmed up his Nautic 2001, no perfect pass, no zero off, hand driving. And the deal was I was going to free ski across the lake, and then, I rode in the boat. We got to where he had his course, and we were going to do a regular 6 to 8 passes set. Mind you that with hand driving, I ran way more buoys that it was legit. I took 6 to 8 passes. We dropped. I took my ski off. He was asking me how everything felt. And then he said, "Hey, do you want to do some free skiing? Because obviously I was driving you. I wasn't looking at the mirror, but I'd love to help you out." And so I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So I put my ski back on. I pull out to the left to then do like a gate of some sorts and start to do some free skiing. And as I pulled out to the left, José killed the boat and stood up. And in our dialect from our city, he said something along the lines of, you're a good skier, but there's a lot that you can work on to become an even better skier." And mind you, I only did a pull out, right? So I instantaneously fell in love with the guy. And I skied with him for a whole week. Every day we would free ski roughly about like 6 to 7 mile stretch from his dock all the way to Iseo, which is the town that the lake takes the name from. We would have an ice cream together, chat about skiing, and then another 6 to 7 mile stretch free riding, right? And then we would stop in the middle. He would tell me something to try. I would try it. And then after that week, my dad came back from his work trip, and we resumed the usual, go to the lake together after he would be done with work. And I would always see that course growing up. And one day, the buoys weren't there anymore. And so I called Jose and I said, hey, did you take out the course for maintenance, And he said, no, you reminded me of what it is to work with a competitive water skier. And I missed that. And it's enough for me to pull beginners and amateurs. I don't really want to do that anymore. So I just chopped the cable. I just chopped the ropes. Literally, like the cable is still there. That course is still in Paratico for someone to find and put some buoys on, by the way. So I immediately told my dad, I said, Dad, like, is there any way we can have him work at ski school? Like, can he come with us? And so he talked to Claudio, he talked to Jose, Claudio being the coach, my coach. And Jose came and worked for us for 3 years. And in those 3 years, I skied with Jose every single day. And it was a completely different experience than what I was having at the time with my coach, because Jose would be asking me to do something, and then I would try it and give my feedback. And he was eager to know what I thought. And sometimes I would say, look, that's not really what I felt. At the time, I was doing a bit of a two-handed gate, but also starting late at the pull out. So he suggested maybe to do a one-handed gate like back in the days. And I was aware of what, Jamie and Marcus were doing in the US. So I was like, well, maybe we do a one-handed gate, but I don't know. Like, it feels weird. I'm not precise. And so we were working through that stuff together. And at the time, my coach was driving and Jose was my coach, coaching me. And that was such a formative experience for both Claudio and I, because we learned from someone who had brought up so many athletes, like his daughter got second at Junior Worlds, like Luca Mazza got third at Junior Worlds. Like, we're talking about like Sonia Truzzi over the years, even people that I don't even know that became competitive water skiers. So Jose had seen a lot of athletes. And he was also a snow ski coach. So he also had that coaching experience. And in those 3 years, I have learned on a skiing level, on a personal level, I learned a lot from Jose. And we got really close. Like we would drive to the lake together. We would ski. I remember a tournament where I was 17. So that was the first year that Jose worked for us. And I was ranked first or second in Europe in juniors. And a week before, I blew my MCL jumping. So I couldn't go to the Junior Europeans. But the MCL recovery is actually fairly quick. So I was able in a couple of months to be back on the water. And we had a record tournament at my site. And there was another very great skier, Michele Gallegra from Italy, national team member, who was at this record tournament. And I somehow ended up tying him. Like, he didn't ski good, I skied good. Like, I think we did like 1 or 2 at 10.7 at 39. And so my dad and a couple of other people put up like some money, said, why don't you guys run it off and we see who wins? And I was on the dock, like nervous as you can imagine. And Michele won the coin toss and decided to go first. And as I saw him starting at 38, I'm like, this is like, I think he had won nationals beating Tigas, and Matteo and Fabio. So like, this was a very nervous moment. And Jose saw that and came on the dock and put his hand on my shoulder and said, are you breathing? And breathing was obviously the last thing I was thinking about. Like, and it was like, keep breathing, regular intervals, and go out and do your best. And then Michele kind of underperformed, did 4.5 at 38. So didn't run the first pass of the dock, and I was able to get to 5 and pulled to 6, didn't get it, and won. So that was one of the moments I remember where Jose really was there, And then also tied to that was the zigzag. So Jose taught me the zigzag. He said, you need to understand when you don't have it in you anymore and learn this technique that would allow you to get a whole buoy instead of like a quarter or a half. And his thing was, you can win worlds by a quarter buoy. Always told me that. And the reason for that is that his daughter got second at Worlds, in Junior Worlds. And I don't remember exactly the score, but it was something along the lines that she fell on a buoy that as she turned, probably she would have won. So we practiced the zigzag, like literally in practice. At the time, for me, it might have been like 2 or 3 at 39. He taught me, he said, you pull to 3 and you let the ski out, you pull towards the boat, you pull away from the boat, and you do a regular cut before the boat guides. If you do that, then you get a full buoy. And at the time, I'm pretty sure you could still do the, I don't know what it's called technically, but basically you can have a huge pool, go close to the boat, hold on the handle in your hands, and if you still had the handle in your hands after the next buoy boat guides, it would be a full buoy. And so I was kind of thinking, why don't I learn that? Like it seems like a simpler thing to do. You just pull all the way to the buoy, try to learn how to carry speed. And Jose was like, that is not a skier's position. Like he told me, like the rule says skier's position. I don't understand why this rule is even in. You'll learn how to zigzag and continue, and you bring yourself to the dock. I'm like, okay. And so I first learned to zigzag offside turn, which is generally the easiest one because you can see the buoy in front of you. And then we learned also onside turn zigzag, and we were practicing it intentionally. And needless to say, I have won or placed or made finals at pro events through that technique. So these are just a couple of examples of how this great coach and great man really affected me. And my experience was completely different from the stories that I heard from club members. Although the situation was different, he was coaching at our place, not necessarily in charge, like he was in the boat and just got to do what he loved. He already had a couple of health issues before coming to us. So it was a bit of a quieter man, but very loving man. There were so many kids at the time also at ski school that he literally loved to coach and help. I mean, Gianmarco Paini, who ended up winning junior masters and being among the best trickers in the world, Arieta and Alessandra Caldis, Alessandro Pace, Nicolas Benatti. Like there were so many kids that he had a chance to influence, honestly, for the better. But I do remember the way he influenced me, and I do remember, and I was able to see how he influenced my coach. Because after 2 or 3 years, Jose was one of those guys that would stay in the boat, 8 a.m., 8 p.m., no bimini top, chug him a lunchbox in the boat, and, he would just stay on. And it got to a point where it was like early 70s, and, like I think my dad and my coach didn't really feel comfortable to invite him again. So that was hard. That was a hard situation to deal with for my dad, for sure. I would imagine. But we had learned so much from this great coach. And then I knew that he hadn't been doing well in the last few years. And I got to see him a couple of years ago. He taught his granddaughter how to ski, and on the lake behind the Ski Nautique 2001. And so I told Lalla, Jose's daughter, that I would have loved to bring her to San Gervasio and show her a course and try to run a course. And I remember I brought Sofia to the lake, and she got off the water, deep water start, And the second she got up, she brought her hips to the handle and was in a stacked position just right away behind the boat. And I was thinking, yeah, this is José's granddaughter, And I was able, I think in a couple of sets, she managed to run the course. And to me, it was such an honor to be able to do that. And then I brought her back to José's house, and we had a nice conversation. He was asking me who was leading in the pro tour and how I was skiing, and I just have really fond memories of this great man and this amazing coach. Like his technical knowledge was great, but especially he gave me an idea of what a healthy and productive coach-athlete relationship can look like. So I'll be forever grateful to him. And I think obviously the Italian water ski world had heard of his name and knew, his name very well. But I think the whole water ski world deserved to hear the story of José. And even though it's just a moment of his long history in water skiing, I remember when he used to tell me, Matteo, I saw the first guy do a flip in a tournament at a time where a flip wasn't even a thing. But there were these Americans, they were just throwing them in there to make a point that this needed to be done, right? So I have great memories, and I just wanted the Water Ski Podcast audience to hear about José and about his story. Thank you.